Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us here on the South African Morning. Now, corruption seems to have permeated every sector of our society. It even has its claws in the food aid sector. South African Harvest says its important donors know the aid is reaching the right beneficiaries. It's now introduced an app to ensure transparency in the food aid industry. Let's find out more now from Cassandra Potgieter. She's from SA Harvest. Cassandra, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the South African Morning. Firstly, very embarrassing for a country that, an organization like yours has to find a system that will make sure that food gets to the people it should get to.
It's not so much embarrassing as it is a symptom of humanity. And putting a system in place is more about, first of all, I wanted to take a step back and say the app is not punitive.
Okay.
It's not to penalize people for doing certain things and not doing certain things. It was to create a database where when people feel they can give, we can say, this is what is needed, and it's organized and it's trackable. And what's happened before is people would show up at beneficiaries and not necessarily have the ear to listen what is required. And that's where we stepped in to say...
So that's the reason you created the app, not because people are stealing.
Well, we have had situations where people would take the food that have been delivered in aid to sell it. But that just goes back to the point of its humanity. There's a dire need for things to happen a certain way. And maybe they didn't need more food, maybe they needed other support. And that got us thinking to say, so how do we build that ecosystem of food security? Because it's not, the starting point is food, we rescue food. But the ultimate aim is to say, so how do you keep that system going? And in doing that, getting beneficiaries listed in a way that says, these are the elements that they need, this is who they're supporting. And we do get questions where people do ask, do you support ECDs or elderly, or how do they, and we say it's across the spectrum.
Everyone, okay.
But everyone has unique needs. The nutritional value that we would deliver for a children's home is not the same that we would deliver at an old age home.
And with how much food we waste in this country, children really should, or anyone really should not be going to bed hungry, right? So tell me more about the system and what it promotes. So I hear from what you're saying, transparency is one of the things. How does it work and what else does it promote?
So where we started was, our main mission at SA Harvest is rescue food, feed the hungry. And in rescuing the food, we started with a system where we could, on a technological platform, track what we've rescued and then how we distribute the nutritional value of the food that we've rescued. It's one thing rescuing 200 tons of pumpkin, but you can't exactly flood beneficiaries with pumpkin. So it's also understanding the nutritional value, and having the data to support that was the first step. The next step was to say, so now we have these community-based organizations that actually need X, Y, Z. Learners need books, the elderly need mattresses. It's those kind of systems that when you start tracking it in a formalized way, you actually have a much better chance at covering the basics, as opposed to just going, hi, please raise funds these people don't have. Which is where, if you say, this is our community, this is our beneficiaries that plug into our community, and this is what is needed. It's there, it's a list, and you can tick it off.
So at least it consolidates and it's like a meeting ground for everybody.
Exactly.
I have this extra and I don't need it here, should I bring it to you type thing.
It's also, and people necessarily don't have extra. One of the profound things was, once we knew what beneficiaries needed, people actually step out of their way to say, for instance, the logistics company that went, we actually know a guy that has mattresses, and that connection enabled them to deliver a whole set of much needed resources to an institution that actually required it, like yesterday. So having had that, and also our beneficiaries, when I say our beneficiaries, it's rather our community-based organizations who support beneficiaries. And those organizations don't operate necessarily in a formalized manner. They don't necessarily have the paperwork. They don't necessarily, but they are supporting a crowd of people in a community. And starting at the first phase to say, so how do we track the nutritional value that they receive? What is their setup? When we deliver food, do they have fridges?
Yeah.
Do they have a stove to cook the food on?
Right.
So it's basic questions like that. And it doesn't help. Okay, so we give them a stove. Do they have the infrastructure to carry the stove? Is it a gas stove? Is it an electric stove? So it starts answering.
Can they handle? Do they have the money to actually keep putting the gas into the stove?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once you understand that there's a wider ecosystem around food handling, so not just food safety, like, okay, it needs to go in a fridge, but also cooking the food.
Yeah.
And then that is the next step in terms of saying, so supporting a community to say, so what do you need?
Yeah, nice. So it centralizes everybody. I like that. So I understand that it was rolled out in phases.
Yes.
What's the app called? Can we access it? Can the organizations that support beneficiaries and communities access it already?
So we're in testing phase.
Okay.
And what we did was we focused it on our beneficiaries. We have about 285 vetted beneficiaries. And it sort of makes it easier because we have in place what we need already, but it's a good litmus test to say how effective is the app and what is it showing. It's coming out with data that we were not aware of. So highlighting those gaps to us just goes to show that eventually it will go broader than that.
Yeah.
We've partnered with a company called Garnish who've done a lot of similar projects in Kenya and other places in Eastern Africa where the first phase was getting the CBOs, the community-based organizations, loaded, and then also the guardians who take care of children around that.
Okay.
And I think in South Africa we have a situation where we do have undocumented people. We do have people who are not in a system who don't have access to a grant but still need that support.
Thank you.
And it's about creating that ecosystem where we say, well, these are people in need. This is what this looks like.
Okay.
Whether it rolls out, so at this point in time we'll make our data available to say this is what the communities look like, this is what is required, these are the people that are making use of it. And the next phase is then to release a report based on that stats to say this is what it looks like.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming in and for speaking to us about this very important initiative, because nobody in South Africa really should be going hungry with the amount of food that we throw away, tons and tons, thousands of tons that we throw away as a country. But Cassandra Potgieter from SA Harvest and that organization have a plan. So that's what you get on a show like the South African Morning. We give you politics and all the hard news that you need to know, but we also focus on some charitable work because our job is also, as journalists, nation building. So we'll see you at